Most people still imagine renewable energy as something small. A few solar panels on rooftops, a local wind farm somewhere outside a city, a government climate target that may or may not happen in the future. But that picture is now completely outdated. Renewable energy has entered a very different phase. Countries are no longer building projects. They are building energy systems so massive that some of them can power millions of homes, reshape regional economies, and completely change how countries think about electricity, infrastructure, and even geopolitical influence. And the craziest part is that many of these projects are still under construction right now. Let's start with a project that sounds almost unreal. Off the coast of the United Kingdom, Dogger Bank is being built to become the world's largest offshore wind farm. This project is expected to reach around 3.6 gigawatts of capacity. That is enough electricity to power millions of homes. But numbers alone don't really explain how ridiculous this is. Dogger Bank is not just a cluster of turbines. It is industrial-scale offshore infrastructure spread across an enormous area of the North Sea. Huge turbines, marine construction, subsea cabling, grid connections. Everything about this project is large. And projects like this are one reason offshore wind is no longer viewed as a side technology. It is now becoming serious national infrastructure. India has been quietly building one of the most ambitious renewable projects on the planet. Khavda Renewable Energy Park is expected to become one of the world's largest renewable energy installations once completed. This project combines solar and wind at extraordinary scale. And it is not just about clean electricity. Projects like this are part of India's broader attempt to scale energy infrastructure aggressively while meeting rapidly rising electricity demand. What makes Khavda especially interesting is the sheer land scale involved. You are not talking about a normal power project. You are talking about energy infrastructure visible at extraordinary scale. This is part of why India keeps appearing as an increasingly important renewable energy story globally. Saudi Arabia knows oil will not define the future forever, and that is part of why projects like NEOM matter. This is one of the largest green hydrogen projects currently under construction anywhere in the world. The goal is industrial-scale hydrogen production powered by renewable electricity. That sounds simple. It is not. Green hydrogen requires massive renewable input, large electrolysis infrastructure, storage planning, export logistics, and industrial coordination. In other words, this is not just another solar project. It is an attempt to build an entirely new future fuel ecosystem. Whether green hydrogen succeeds at scale is still debated. But if it does, projects like this will likely be remembered as early infrastructure anchors. Most people think renewable energy is mainly about generation. Build solar, build wind. Done. But that is only half the problem. Electricity also has to move. That is where SunZia becomes especially interesting. This project combines major wind generation with large transmission infrastructure. And that second part matters a lot, because many countries are discovering the same problem. Renewable capacity is scaling faster than grid infrastructure. So even when you generate the electricity, moving it efficiently becomes another challenge entirely. Projects like SunZia are increasingly solving both problems together, and that may become a more common model going forward. Europe is taking offshore wind extremely seriously, and Hollandse Kust is one of the clearest examples. These offshore wind developments are part of Europe's broader strategy to strengthen energy independence while accelerating clean power generation. What makes offshore wind attractive is simple: scale. Once deployment systems mature, offshore projects can add enormous capacity, and Europe appears determined to keep scaling. Projects like this are part of why offshore wind remains one of the most strategically important renewable sectors globally. Morocco has quietly become one of the more interesting renewable stories globally. The Noor Midelt complex is part of that story. This project is helping Morocco scale utility-level solar generation significantly. And geography plays a major role here. Regions with high solar irradiation naturally have advantages that can become economically powerful when infrastructure aligns. That is exactly what projects like Noor represent. Not just solar deployment. Strategic infrastructure built around geographic energy advantages. The U.S. offshore wind sector has had momentum, delays, policy friction, and political debate. But projects like Empire Wind show that major offshore deployment is still moving forward. And these are not small developments. Offshore wind projects now represent major infrastructure decisions involving capital allocation, grid planning, supply chains, and long-term energy strategy. Projects like Empire Wind matter not only because of their capacity, they matter because they signal structural commitment. Not every massive renewable project is about generation. Some are about solving renewable energy's most famous weakness: intermittency. China's Fengning project is one of the largest pumped storage facilities in the world, and storage may become one of the most critical renewable enablers over the next decade. Because scaling renewable generation without adequate storage creates balancing challenges. Projects like this are effectively infrastructure insurance. They help stabilize systems as renewable penetration rises. And as renewable deployment accelerates, storage infrastructure may become just as strategically important as generation itself. The UAE is building solar infrastructure at increasingly aggressive scale. Al Dhafra is one of the clearest examples. This project is among the world's largest utility-scale solar developments. And projects like this demonstrate something important. Solar is no longer just a sustainability conversation. It is now an economics conversation, a competitiveness conversation, an infrastructure conversation. Scale is making these projects increasingly difficult to ignore. This is one of the boldest ideas in the renewable space. Not just large-scale solar generation, cross-border electricity transmission ambitions. The concept is enormous. Generate renewable electricity at scale in Australia and export energy via transmission systems internationally. That is a very different future model. Instead of exporting fossil fuels, electricity itself becomes part of the export strategy. If projects like this become common, they could significantly change how energy trade works globally. China's desert renewable energy bases. And then there is China. China is building renewable energy infrastructure at a scale few countries can realistically match. Its desert renewable energy bases are enormous. Massive coordinated deployments of solar and wind infrastructure across multiple regions. This is not isolated project thinking. This is system-level planning, national-scale build-out. And whether people like it or not, China's deployment scale has become one of the defining forces shaping the renewable energy conversation globally. What makes these projects interesting is not simply their size. It is what they reveal. Renewable energy is no longer being treated as a side addition to traditional energy systems. It is increasingly being built as foundational infrastructure. At national scale, at industrial scale, at strategic scale, and as electricity demand rises from AI, electrification, transportation, industrial growth, and digital infrastructure, projects like these may become even more common. Which means the real story may not be whether renewable energy grows. That question is increasingly boring. The real question is how fast infrastructure at this scale can actually be deployed. Because based on what is already under construction, the transition is no longer hypothetical. It is already happening. At ridiculous scale.